Hello, I'm John Rossi, a touring drummer with a love of all things animal. When I'm on the road, I visit as many zoos, aquariums... Hey, wait a minute. What's going on? Hey, what's going on there? Hello? 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 We interrupt your regularly scheduled program to bring you Rossifari Zoo news. News you can use from the world of zoos and conservation. Every week, we bring you breaking news and analysis from around the globe, featuring the animals you love and the people who care for them. And here's your anchorman, John Rossi. Hi, hello, how are you? Welcome back to Rossifari Zoo News, your look at everything going on in the world of zoos, aquariums, conservation, and general animal weirdness. Y'all, I'm going to start off with the boring stuff. Make sure that you remember to hit subscribe so you don't miss any Zoo News episodes or any interview episodes. Make sure that you're following along on socials at Rossifari or at Rossifari Pod on TikTok. I did just post some new content featuring me drumming with Emily from when I was up there recently, so make sure you catch that. And don't forget that you can support the podcast for as little as $3 a month by going to patreon.com/Rossifari, as my new patron just decided to do. So welcome to the family, Marjolaine. We are grateful to have you here. Also don't forget that you can, support the pod in a non-financial way because this is a crowdsourced Zoo News program. So you can send me anything that you see that you think would be Zoo News worthy, and I will say your name at the end of the episode, whether I use it or not. So yay, exciting stuff. Okay. Enough about all of that. I'm going to start this segment by telling you about something cool that I got to see this week. I actually got to see a lot of cool things this week. So you may remember that this was the week that I was spending mostly in New England doing a bunch of shows of Great Balls of Fire and also going to a bunch of cool zoos and aquariums and getting awesome content for the podcast. Y'all, no exaggeration, I could not be more excited about the stuff that we got at Roger Williams Park Zoo, New England Aquarium, and with the NEI Bird Show team, which is, always a treat to have NEI on. So it was a lot of really good stuff. What surprised me was when I suddenly found myself having a very Rossifari moment on stage. So I was playing a couple of different venues, and the first one was Maine State Music Theater. Now, this is going to shock you, but Maine State Music Theater is in Maine, in the Maine state in particular. And imagine my surprise when the curtain speech was happening. And all of a sudden, they were like, "Oh, we want to thank WWF." And I was like, "World Wildlife? Wait, what? What's happening here? That's my other world. Why is WWF suddenly involved with my drummy world?" And it turns out that WWF actually sponsored Maine State Theater getting reusable cups for their concessions so that people would be able to buy them and bring them back for cheap refills and not have a bunch of single-use plastic cups that the theater had been using before. And I was so excited to see that. There was literally the giant panda logo right behind me on the video wall on the stage. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I got really excited. And my bandmates saw me get really excited and looked at me and laughed because they think it's hilarious that I got so excited. I was pointing and kind of grinning. Yeah, I'm an idiot. But anyway, so I thought that was really cool that WWF does that. And I don't know if there are other theaters that they have teamed up with or how they got involved with Maine State Music Theater. I didn't really have a chance to sit and do an interview about it or anything, but what a cool thing. And it was really nice to have that juxtaposition of the different things in my life. So that made me really, really happy. So that's all the news that's fit to print from my life. So let's get to it.
Well, it's a 1 for the pandas, 2 for the bears, 3 for the monkeys. Now you should care. Now won't you listen to Zoo News? Or you could do anything, but why not listen to Zoo News? Well, it's a zoo.
All right, so this is one of those weeks where we actually don't have any crazy headline story to talk about, which I always think is a good thing some of the time, because if we have to do a deep dive, lots of times it feels like, well, I don't know. I just feel like the world in general needs less headline moments right now, to be perfectly honest with y'all. So yeah, we're not going to do anything here, and we're going to head right to our births for the week. And we're going to start off at the Detroit Zoo. The Detroit Zoo has announced the birth of a female macaroni penguin chick. She's currently behind the scenes with her parents, bonding until her waterproof feathers grow in, and then she will be introduced to the colony at large, and you'll be able to go see her. The North Carolina Zoo is home to 6 new Von der Decken hornbills, hatched to parents Jake and Zuri. Now, this is incredibly impressive because Von der Decken hornbills have a super complicated nesting process, and the conditions need to be absolutely perfect for there to be any breeding success at all with this species, which means, obviously, the North Carolina Zoo is doing absolutely amazing work with the species, which, no surprise there. But I have to say, sometimes I am amazed when I talk to different facilities or different people, and they talk about how the conditions have to be absolutely perfect for breeding to happen or hatchings to happen or, live birth, whatever. And then I remember, oh yeah, this is also part of why species struggle in the wild and go extinct, even when humans aren't ruining everything. So it does make sense, but sometimes it does. I'm like, wow, why everything has to be so perfect, but nothing is perfect in the wild anymore. And then I'm like, oh yeah, and that's why animals are dying off at an alarming rate. Yay. But keeping it positive in the births section, the Louisville Zoo has announced the birth of a Sumatran tiger cub, and it's actually the first one born at the zoo in 2 full decades. Now, mom and baby are doing well behind the scenes at this time, and, there will be a debut later on, but for now, yay, very exciting stuff. Zebras Nyota and Diesel have welcomed a Grevy's zebra foal, or zeblet, to Brookfield Zoo. The little one can already be seen hanging out with the herd on habitat where it is often seen running around with the zoomies, as the scientific community likes to call them. Very adorable, very cute zeblet, so worth checking out. And the Brookfield Zoo has announced the birth of a baby short-beaked echidna. Now, under the official Rossifari baby terminology rules, that would be an echidlet, which I really like. You could also just say it could be an echid, because kid, but yeah. Anyway, however, the real term, at least, until I take over the world, or at least the scientific community, is puggle. Puggle is the name of a baby echidna, which is actually pretty awesome. Also, my computer, when I typed it, tried to autocorrect the word puggle both times. I just typed it, including the version that I just said right now. And the second time, it changed it to juggle, which, fair. It's like a real word. But the first time, it changed it to muggle. Do people really type about Harry Potter so much that muggle is the first choice? And also, why are more people not talking about puggles? They are adorable and awesome. But anyway, I digress. 2 pygmy marmosets have been born at Metro Richmond Zoo to parents Casca and Caucho. Since pygmy marmosets are the smallest monkey in the world, you can imagine how small the babies are. Babies actually weigh right around, maybe even under a half an ounce when they are born. So that's a tiny monkey, y'all. And our friends at the Fort Worth Zoo have announced the hatching of 2 gharials, the second year in a row the species has successfully hatched at the zoo. Now, this is extra important because it makes the Fort Worth Zoo the only institution in North America to have successfully repeated the gharial breeding process, meaning, obviously, this is a huge win for the species. It is so amazing to see how, sometimes one facility just gets so good at one species and figuring things out, and it seems like Fort Worth Zoo is well on its way to being the gharial king of the country. And then last but not least, I have a cool and kind of unique story for the births section here. It's a birth story that isn't at a zoo at all, but I'm going to put it in here anyway. Instead, I'm happy to announce the birth of a baby peacock at Floyd Lamb Park in Tule Springs, which is right near Las Vegas. The baby is part of a population of peafowl that has lived at the park since the 1940s, when they were brought to the park to alert humans and other domestic animals when coyotes were prowling around the area and hunting. Their loud calls were the perfect alarm system for that situation. Now, in recent years, the population has fallen, and it reached the point where the only remaining peacocks were all male, obviously, since I said peacocks, but so 3 peahens were brought in to help save the population, and this birth actually represents the first success in that effort. So looks like that population will be saved. But I just love that there's this population that was there just kind of as a very cool, very pretty alarm system. Interesting stuff. And then that brings us to our deaths for the week. There were some truly devastating losses this week, and the first one really stings. Roger Williams Park Zoo has said goodbye to Nico, the baby two-toed sloth that was just recently born at the zoo. Nico passed away from a viral disease that the team started treating as soon as symptoms showed up, but unfortunately, the little guy just didn't pull through. Sending all my love to the incredible team at the zoo. I was actually there this weekend, and seeing the empty sloth area of the rainforest and knowing this had happened really hit home. Sometimes an empty basket is just an empty basket, and sometimes it's a really sad thing to see. So just sending all the love to the team. And another story that we have been following has come to an end this week as well. Seneca Park Zoo has said goodbye to Kipenzi the giraffe. Kipenzi is the giraffe we've talked about on here because of her cancerous jaw tumor that was determined to be inoperable. After 16 months, Kipenzi was still actively participating in training, giraffe feeds, and blood draws. But then all of that stopped, and she stopped eating as well. In just a few days, Kipenzi lost more than 75 pounds and was clearly in discomfort, so the decision was made to euthanize her. The team at Seneca Park Zoo did such an amazing job taking care of this girl, and I am so grateful that I got to see her twice recently before she passed away. It was astonishing to see her living so well with such a huge tumor, and we all know that's only because of her amazingly dedicated care team. I am going to miss seeing that beautiful but unique face at Seneca Park Zoo. Ambrosia, the 3-year-old Bactrian camel who called Edmonton Valley Zoo home, has passed away. Ambrosia was born at the zoo and needed to be hand-reared after her mother rejected her. Unfortunately, she had multiple major medical issues that weren't able to be medically managed any further than they were, so the correct decision was made to humanely euthanize her. This is particularly challenging for her caretakers, who formed an especially close bond with her through the hand-rearing process. Sending all my love to the team and my gratitude for the amazing work they did in their short time with this sweet girl. Henry Vilas Zoo has announced the passing of Sparky, a 26-year-old harbor seal who was born at the zoo in 1998. Sparky was a geriatric animal, and during a recent examination, veterinarians discovered he had developed a problem with his eyes and also heart disease and pneumonia. Not the best examination results, unfortunately, and sadly, all of these issues combined to be more than Sparky would be able to fully recover from, so the decision was made to euthanize him. Sparky was known for being a super patient seal who was the first pinniped that trainers would start to work with because of his forgiving nature. He was also very in love with the special enrichment his care team created for him, which allowed him to use his vibrosity to find hidden food. His gentle spirit will be greatly missed at the zoo. All right, we'll be back after this quick break.
Hi, this is Kathy Hill from the Indian River Lagoon National Estuary Program. We're all about restoration projects in progress this season on One Lagoon, One Voice. Learn about the great strides the lagoon community is taking to restore and protect the Indian River Lagoon. Each week, we dive deep into discussions with scientists, resource managers, and nonprofit leaders to explore lagoon issues and solutions. From oyster reefs to clam restoration, algae blooms to muck, you'll learn all about the projects we're tackling to bring the Indian River Lagoon back to health. Click the link in the show notes to follow One Lagoon, One Voice, learn about the IRL Council, and explore our unique lagoon.
Boris, a 58-year-old chimpanzee who has lived at the Chester Zoo since 1969, has passed away. Boris has an incredible story. He was illegally taken from the wild as a baby by traffickers and ended up living in a pet shop in New York City for a while. He then ended up living in an apartment in Manhattan for several years, which is kind of crazy since most of my actor and musician friends who live in New York can't manage to get a place in Manhattan. But this chimp was able to. But no, he was finally rescued from that life because, all joking aside, I know y'all know that is not okay. And he ended up moving to the Chester Zoo for the rest of his life. Now, Boris is a father to 22 chimpanzees, and his progeny has moved on to zoos all around the world. Boris was beloved at Chester Zoo, so much so they even have a statue of him up at the zoo. He is seriously going to be missed. Seneca Park Zoo has said goodbye to Jabba, the male white rhinoceros that called the zoo home. Jabba was 43 years old, meaning he was the fourth oldest white rhino in the world at the time of his passing. Although his passing at that age is not a surprise, there were no indications that he had reached the end of his life, so the zoo is doing a necropsy to determine the exact cause of death. And I really hope that whatever they find is able to give them the closure that they need, because that's, even when it's an animal who, time-wise, it makes sense. When you don't know what happened, it's always really hard. And then the Denver Zoo has announced the passing of Tilly, an African wild dog. Tilly was 11 years old at the time of her passing and was the matriarch of the pack at the zoo. She was known for being very energetic and full of joy and was super excited to participate in training and other activities with her caretakers. She will be greatly, greatly missed. And that brings us to the rest of our Zoo News section for the week. And we're going to start with a story that could have almost fit into the last category, unfortunately. But it's a quick update about the pregnancy of Isla the tamandua at Cincinnati Zoo. Now, I mentioned recently that Isla was pregnant with twins, the first ever time that has been recorded in a lesser anteater. Well, unfortunately, the last ultrasound only detected one heartbeat, so it seems like one of the twins is gone. But here's hoping that Isla and the remaining pup have a successful remainder of their pregnancy, because I just love that animal so much, and I know a lot of y'all do as well from the many times we've had ambassador keepers at Cincinnati on the podcast. The Riverbanks Zoo in South Carolina has officially opened Komodo Crossing, a new habitat for the zoo's Komodo dragons. The space was made possible by the late Mr. Lloyd and Mrs. Doris Lyles, who left the money for the new habitat upon their passing. I think that's actually really cool and is something that, if you didn't know this is something you can do. You can will, all of or some of your estate to conservation organizations or to a zoo that you love. And you can even, especially if it's like big money that we're talking about, you can even work with the zoo to kind of specify what your money is going to go to, and they will work with you on that willing process. They are very willing to help with it. Sorry. But definitely something worth looking into doing if you plan to die at some point in life, which I believe most of us do. Most of us. Anyway, moving on. This is a really exciting story. The Los Angeles Zoo is having a record-breaking California condor hatching season this year, which is incredible to see. 17 of the birds have hatched at the zoo this year, which beats the previous record of 15. By 2 birds, I think. Anyway, all 17 of the birds are doing super well and are currently considered candidates for release into the wild. This is especially important this year because, as I've mentioned on here before, avian influenza has hit the wild population of California condors and has definitely taken its toll. So not only does every condor birth super matter for the species in general, but it extra super duper matters right now because, we're combating those losses. So this is a big victory for the Los Angeles Zoo. I wanted to take a moment to do a quick follow-up on the strike situation at Zoo de Granby up in Canada. Employees have officially voted for an indefinite strike, which is like the next level. It's an escalation of the labor dispute that I spoke about on here already and shows that the staff is dedicated to getting fair treatment from management at the zoo and that they feel like the management is just really stalling with their contract talks. Again, a reminder, they have technically been working without a collective bargaining agreement since the beginning of the year. And it's August now. And I know, the way things happen this year, it's kind of hard to believe that it's August now. Maybe management at the zoo just doesn't realize how late into the year we are, but we are. And so this is kind of the next level strike, if you will, from what we talked about before. It is still one that will not affect animal care, but hopefully the seriousness of this will help bring management to the bargaining table sooner rather than later, and to get a collective bargaining agreement actually done, and maybe to address the important topics that haven't been touched on yet, like compensation, which is kind of a big part of the whole CBA thing. Moving on from that story, I'm both happy and sad to announce that our friend Greg Dancho, the director of Beardsley Zoo, who's been at the zoo for nearly 45 years now, has announced his upcoming retirement. Now, I'm happy for Greg, who deserves a nice retirement and who has been responsible for so many amazing things at Beardsley Zoo. That place has grown and changed so much just in the time that I've been going there. But I'm also super sad because it's Greg's leadership that has really made Beardsley into the amazing place that it is. The upgraded habitats and the plans for the future there have me so excited. Their master plan looks incredible. So here's hoping that the next director of the zoo is able to continue to guide Beardsley as masterfully as Greg has over his tenure there. And also, whoever the new person ends up being, until they've appeared on the Rossifari podcast, I feel like they don't really earn the title because Greg was an amazing guest. So I'm sure we'll take care of that soon. And Greg won't be the only leader to retire from a zoo soon. John Linehan, the president and CEO of Zoo New England, has also announced his upcoming retirement. John oversaw incredible growth at both Franklin Park Zoo and Stone Zoo during his 43-year tenure at Zoo New England, 22 years of which were spent in the president and CEO role. That's so much time, y'all. And it's so crazy to think that in 1 week, the zoo world found out it will be losing 2 amazing leaders, both of which are in New England, and that have a combined 88 years of experience between them, just between Beardsley and then the 2 zoos of Zoo New England. So some sad losses, but I'm very, happy that they get to retire and do the thing. I really, really hope that the next leaders are able to rise to the challenge. And then, to end this section with a bang, our friends at the Lehigh Valley Zoo have some new animals in their collection. Now, the last time we announced this, they were getting 2 amazing red pandas, and our community raised money to help sponsor the exhibit, and I got to go to the big preview event, and we did an interview about them, and it was all just awesome. All right, we'll be back after this quick break.
What if I told you scientists discovered 100 new species in the deep ocean?
Why did crocodiles survive extinction?
Megalodon. How did it go extinct?
Hey, it's me, Forrest Galante, wildlife biologist. You might know me from Joe Rogan's podcast or my various TV shows like Extinct or Alive and Shark Week. Join me and my friends as we dive into the wild world of animal anomalies and everything wildlife. Don't miss out. Click here to uncover these mind-blowing animal mysteries.
And this is not that. In fact, the animals in question are, wait for it, they're chickens. Yep, they're chickens. 7 new chickens in the barnyard. And so you're probably wondering why I'm telling you this, what makes this zoo newsworthy. Well, the PR person at the zoo actually showed up with a gun while I was recording this, so I'm really at their mercy now. No, I kid. The truth is, this is making the episode entirely because of the names of the chickens. Friends, I am here to tell you that Lehigh Valley Zoo has 7 new chickens named Stevie Chicks, Lindsay Cluckingham, Attila the Hen, Alex Hender the Great, Kylo Hen, Darth Layer, and my personal favorite, Chewbacca. Get it? Like the noise. I know I actually did the noise. I don't have to say the whole thing. Anyway, y'all, this type of puntastic ingenuity is how you get on Zoo News, even if it is with, as I mentioned, chickens.
Stereotypical animal podcast theme song. Here to bring it to conservation news.
A spade-toothed whale recently washed ashore in New Zealand, which created quite the stir. Now, you may be wondering why you haven't heard of this species. Well, that's because it is rare. It's actually incredibly rare. How rare? No live sightings of this animal have ever been recorded, including now. This was a dead whale. The whale is currently in cold storage in New Zealand while scientists test the DNA to ensure that it is, in fact, the elusive species in question, as it's hard to really know for sure since we don't know much about them. Researchers are hoping to dissect the whale to learn more about this species because, again, we're just really lacking in info about it. But since whales are considered sacred to the Maori people of New Zealand, the government will consult with those indigenous people to determine what to do with the body. To give you a quick overview of what we do know about them, spade-toothed whales are around 16 feet long, have a grayish skin tone, very small pectoral flippers, and a large beak with very large teeth. Only 6 of the animals have ever been found, all deceased, since the first one was discovered back in 1874. They are believed to be restricted to the southern hemisphere, specifically the South Pacific, though it's hard to know their exact range given the whole only ever discovering 6 of them thing. It's yet another reminder of how little we know about what we don't know that's still out there in our world, and, especially in our oceans. We've talked about this before, but one of the challenges of conservation is that we need to save the species that are often seen as less charismatic, even though I sometimes get in trouble for calling them that. But let's be honest, it's pretty easy to convince someone to want to save a red panda simply by showing them the face of a red panda. Want to raise money to protect tree kangaroos? Post a video of one munching on some veggies. Hearts will open, and often that leads to wallets doing the same thing. But what about an animal that people are scared of? Like, say, a rattlesnake. Well, researchers at California Polytechnic State University are trying to show off how cool rattlesnakes are in a pretty unique way. They discovered a mega den of rattlesnakes. Now, that's the actual terminology used by these actual scientists, not just your idiot drummer podcaster saying, ooh, mega den, like it's some kind of heavy metal band or something. But yes, so anyway, they discovered a mega den of rattlesnakes on private land in Colorado, where literally hundreds of the snakes are living together, eating rodents, caring for their babies, and coexisting peacefully, just living their best rattlesnake lives. The researchers have set up a live stream camera to try to show the public how these animals actually function in the wild, to try to demystify them and make people fall in love with their society and their paternal instincts. Or maternal instincts. Parental instincts is what I wrote, but I'm just going to keep rolling. Anyway, the hope is this mega den will allow people to see the charisma these animals do possess, even if it will take some training for the average viewer to start to care. It's definitely a unique idea, and it also has some of its own consequences, maybe, or at least concerns. One of the things that stood out to me is that the location of the mega den is not being revealed, other than it's in Colorado, specifically because they're worried that people would try to go to the mega den and try to kill the snakes, which would be the antithesis of making people fall in love with them. So yeah, it does show off how these less charismatic species, if I can get away with that term, do have some serious concerns and threats that you have to think about, even if they're living in a mega den. We have some exciting news about Siamese crocodiles this week. They were found to live in a no, I'm kidding. Anyway, Siamese crocodiles are a critically endangered species found in Cambodia that have been almost completely wiped out by, you guessed it, hunting and habitat loss. For the last 20 years, conservationists have been trying to revive their numbers in the Cardamom Mountains, and this year has seen the biggest success yet. 60 baby Siamese crocodiles were born in the area this year, far outpacing previous year's births. Congrats to the conservationists and crocs involved. There is a new 4-part HBO docuseries dropping on August 18th that I fully believe will be as bad as Tiger King. The show is called Chimp Crazy, and I'm here to officially ask y'all to not give in and watch it. The show is about an exotic animal broker, to use the official terminology, named Tanya Haddix, who refers to herself as the Dolly Parton of chimps, which, ma'am, no. Just no. Dolly Parton is a national treasure, and that is blasphemy. And it's also somehow the least offensive thing about this docuseries. So Tanya apparently develops a strong and unique relationship with one of the chimps in her care, which leads her into, according to the press release, a wild cat and mouse game with authorities and animal rights groups. The release goes on to say that through Tanya and other, quote, chimp mom experiences, blah, Chimp Crazy reveals the singular bonds that form between owners and their highly intelligent great ape pets. Now, it does say the series exposes the risks humans take when they try to raise these animals as a member of their family, as well as the risks to the welfare of the animals themselves. So I guess there is the hope that this will be one huge piece of gotcha journalism that exposes these people for being, wildly problematic. But somehow I'm not holding out much hope. Keep in mind, there are a lot of conflicting studies in general about showing animals and humans interacting, even at places like accredited zoos. There's some debate about this, and it's very easy to be on either side of that argument with studies and evidence on both sides. But the one area where there is no ambiguity with this issue, where it can be 100% said that all evidence points to images like that, or like videos of people living with them causing problems for the species, is with primates, especially great apes. I have a really bad feeling about the effect this series will have on great apes in general. And if I'm wrong and they do an amazing job illustrating why having great apes as pets is a terrible, 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 terrible idea, I'll happily eat my words and we can all watch together. But that seems unlikely. But to end this section on a happier note, Pinellas County in Florida made sea turtle hatching history this year. The first ever leatherback nest successfully hatched on one of the beaches there this season. The first ever. This is huge news, as sea turtles will usually return to their same nesting grounds year after year for like hundreds of millions of generations. So does this mean that turtles are adapting to the loss of their original nesting grounds? Does it simply mean that one leatherback got lost? Will these babies return to this beach and start to turn it into a true leatherback nesting ground? It's hard to say, but it's really good news for the species that there's another leatherback nesting ground. And that brings us to...
It's time for other news. It's time for other news. Hey, now, right now, now it's time. It's time for other news. Hey, it's a segue to the part called other news.
So a year ago, I shared a story about a sea otter that was living in the Santa Cruz area that had started stealing and even chewing on surfboards. Otter 841, as the wildly boring science people who gave him that name instead of something creative like... It actually is hard to come up with a name specifically about an otter stealing surfboards. Like Brian Wilson, like from the Beach Boys, because they surfed? They had like Surf and Safari, but... Oh, wait, Otter 841 is a girl, so even that terrible name doesn't work. Okay. Oh, how about Annette from the whole Frankie and Annette surf movies that I vaguely remember hearing about? They were from like the 1960s or something. This is hard. Okay, maybe Otter 841 is the best choice. Anyway, Otter 841 is back in Santa Cruz, stealing surfboards and munching on them again. Now, this is an otter that was so elusive last year that authorities gave up trying to catch her and stop her crime wave, and instead just told people in the water to stay away from the curious girl. So here's hoping there isn't too much conflict with her and surfers this time around, but always nice to know there's a celebrity hanging out in Santa Cruz. And then we've all heard of Cocaine Bear, the movie that came out last year, dramatizing a story about a bear that got high on cocaine. Well, a sequel could well be on the way, as 13 sharks recently tested positive for cocaine off the coast of Brazil. And this wasn't just 13 sharks out of a lot of sharks that were tested. There were only 13 sharks tested, meaning there is a real concern that all of the Brazilian sharp-nosed sharks off the coast of Brazil might have cocaine in them. Now, along with fueling some hilarious mental images of cocaine-fueled shark rages, this does bring up some interesting questions. For starters, how did the cocaine get into the sharks? Researchers believe this is further proof that human drug use is causing major problems in nature, as cocaine and other drugs seep into wastewater and then get into large bodies of water, especially in places where use of the drug is concentrated, like maybe Rio de Janeiro. The way the cocaine gets into the water is still up for question, but the concentrations are high enough that it's very possible that this is just the effect of the drug being dumped into the water by traffickers to avoid getting caught. It's also possible that it's found in human waste after the humans use the drug, but the body doesn't process it all. However it is happening, the coke is definitely getting into these animals, and that is not a good thing. Now, scientists don't actually know if the cocaine affects the sharks at all or causes any behavioral issues or, honestly, anything like that at all. There has also not been any study into what effect eating cocaine sharks could have on humans. And that sounds like I'm about to make a joke, but I mean it. Would the drug have an effect if it entered the human body that way? Would you test positive for cocaine if you took a drug test, like say for a new job, even if you've never actually tried the drug before? We currently don't know, so this is an interesting study that creates a lot more questions than it answers. But again, it also creates the admittedly kind of amusing concept of sharks on cocaine. I want to see that movie. Oh, they could totally do a mashup with Sharknado, and it could be like, the cocaine Sharknado, rawr. Anyway.
Oh, animal, animal holidays. Animal, animal holidays. Hey!
All right, it is August, and it's our first full episode in August, which is Asian Elephant Awareness Month, National Catfish Month, National Parks Month, and August is for Antelope Month. Then, for our individual days, we have August 2nd, which is Golden Lion Tamarin Day, August 4th, which is Owl Awareness Day, Clouded Leopard Day, and starts International Assistance Dog Week. The 5th is World Tomastoma Day, the 7th is Sea Serpent Day, and the 8th is International Cat Day and Moon Bear Day. And those are your animal holidays for the week, and also make me wonder, who would win in a battle between a cocaine sharknado and a sea serpent? All right, there you have it, folks. Another episode of Rossifari Zoo News. Don't forget to bang it back here on Tuesday for our next interview episode. Before I say goodbye, I want to take a moment to say thank you to all of my Red Panda level patrons, including Dr. Laura Shank, Dr. Stephen Williamson, Barbara Bennett, Jenny Owens, and Kevin Williams. I'd also like to thank everyone who contributed this week, including Anya Keene, Colleen Lenahan, Kim Cooley-Croninger, Carrie Kirkpatrick, Kevin Williams, Emily Rockbuck, Ann Yoshioka, Jay Meredith, Matt Patford, Crystal Chapman, Kristen Khalil, Dr. Laura Shank, Ali Malensky, Kay Malensky, Dr. Zoe Rossi, Ken Tryon, Ann McEachran, Tiana, Sherry Weiss, Justin Williams, Karen Musklow, Emily Poche, and Elizabeth Charles. Yes, Elizabeth Charles. It's actually funny story about that. So I was talking to Miles, who I'm hanging out with here today, and I mentioned that I had just been up to New England. And he goes, "Oh my goodness, did you meet Elizabeth Charles?" And I was like, "What? No, she's in. That's like the other England. There's New England in the United States, and apparently he had not yet learned about New England, so he got to learn about New England. And I just thought that was very cute. Unfortunately, I did not get to meet Elizabeth Charles while I was hanging out in like Boston and stuff. But I would love to hang out and say hi sometimes. You know, Elizabeth. Yes. Anyway, thank you all so much for contributing to the episode this week. And the last thing I have to say to everyone is, hey, remember, the words Newsy credits backwards are Steiderk Yiswen. The Rossifari podcast is produced, hosted, and engineered by John Rossi. Editing and fact-checking by John and Dr. Zoe Rossi. Our theme song is Sevens by Nathan Burke, performed by Nathan and John. Interrupting John theme and additional voices by Taylor Isaac Gray. You can reach John directly on Instagram and Facebook at Rossifari or by email at rossifaripod@gmail.com. Rossifari is part of the Daydreamer Media Network. Now, stop listening to me and go visit a zoo. I have no outtake this week, not because I didn't make any mistakes this week, but because for whatever reason, possibly because the real field temperature is over 100 degrees right now, and the room I'm recording in is very warm, and the AC doesn't hit it really hard, and I can't turn a fan on because I'm recording, but every time I did make a mistake, I swore violently and loudly, so no outtakes this week. Bye!